Good morning, everyone. My name is Leslie Adriano. The topic that was given to me is all about genres of literature: fiction, non-fiction, folk. Fantasy, a story that is imaginative but could never really happen. This setting may be of another world. Characters might be magical. So, in the fantasy is a form of literary genre in which a plot cannot occur in the real world. Its plot usually involves witchcraft or magic. For example, The Princess Bride and Beauty and the Beast. Historical fiction, a story that takes place in historically accurate time and setting. The characters and some events are fictional. So in the historical fiction, a story composed the imagination of author, but it is made up or set in the past wherein they use the time and place based on history. Mystery, a story that usually involves suspense and the solving of a crime. Clues are typically given throughout the story to solve the mystery at the end of the book. So in the mystery, it is a kind of story wherein it makes the readers become interested in solving problems or investigate or a certain crime. Realistic fiction, a story that seems real or could happen in real life. It is set present day and includes modern day problems and events. So realistic fiction attempts to portray the world as it is. It contains no fantasy, no supernatural elements, and it usually depicts ordinary people going about the business of daily living with all its joys, sorrow, success, and failures. So basically, it resembles real-life situation. Science fiction, a story that is typically set in the future or on other planets. It is based on the impact of actual, imagined, or in potential science. So, basically, it deals with science but in a manner of considering the complex ways of our technology and science, but still it composed of the imagination of the author. Adventure, a story where a protagonist and other major characters and are placed in dangerous situations. The characters must use their wit and skills to defeat the antagonist. So adventure consists of books where the protagonist goes on an epic journey, either personally or geographically. Often the protagonist has a mission and faces many obstacles in his ways. A good example of adventures would be The Lord of the Rings. Fable, a brief story that is meant to tell lessons or moral. The characters are usually animals with human characters. Fable is a short story that teaches a lesson or conveys a moral. You'll find a lot of personified animals in Fable, like talking turtle. Example, the tortoise and the hare. Fairy tale, a story that has magical elements. The characters are usually fairies, giants, elves, and other magical creatures. So, in fairy tale is a children's story in a magical setting about imaginary character that include fairies, dwarfs, witch, angel, and talking animals. Example, Three Little Pigs and the Ugly Duckling. Legend, a story usually about a national or folk hero. This story takes place in a particular time and place and is partly true and partly fiction. The character traits of the hero are typically exaggerated. So legend, a story handed down through a generation which is believed to be historical. An example of legend is King Arthur. Tall tale, a humorous story with extreme exaggerations. The main character or hero usually does impossible things with ease. So, tall tale, a folk tale with unbelievable exaggeration told as if it were true and meant to be humorous. A myth, a story that is often based on historical event that is meant to serve an explanation for some phenomenon of nature or human behavior. Character are usually gods. So myth is a folklore genre consisting of narratives or stories that play a fundamental role in society, such as foundational tales or origin myth. The main character in myths are usually gods, demigods, or supernatural humans. The best example of this is Iliad and Odyssey by Homer. List poem, a poem that is based on list or catalog or some sort. poem address. A poem that is written to somebody or something. It is not about a person or thing. So, poem address is a poetic form that allows poet to speak to a subject. Most of the time, the subject doesn't talk back because it's a person who isn't with the poet or because person is no longer living. When the poet addresses a subject that can respond, it's called apostrophe. Narrative poem. A poem that is written from a different point of view. So, narrative poem, first person use I is personal because an individual is speaking to us. Second person use the word you. It is intimate because it is like speaking someone in the room. Third person use words such as he, she, is, they, etc. It is like speaking to someone who not there with you. Couplet. A form of poetry that is uses two lines that rhyme. Couplet, two verses is a pair of successive lines or metre in poetry. A couple may be formal or run-on. Haiku, a type of poetry from Japanese culture. So haiku, it consists of 3 lines. The first line has 5 syllables. The second line 7 syllables. And third has 5 syllables. Haiku not rhyme. Haiku does not rhyme. It is meant to paint a mental image. Haiku are typically about nature. Cinquain. A cinquain is a 5-line poem. Sequin have 5 uses. Has 5 verses. Is a class of poetic form that employ a 5-line pattern. Earlier used to describe any 5-line form. It now refers to one of several forms that are defined by specific rules and guidelines. Diamante, a 7-line poem in the shape of diamond. Acrostic, a poem in which the first letters of each line spell a special word. Acrostic is a literary device in which the first letter of every verse consecutively forms a word of message. Bio poem, a poem in which a person is described in 11 lines. Bio poem, simple poem written about a person, and it allows a predictable pattern. Bio poems generally don't rhyme and they can be autobiographical or biographical. Biography, a history of someone's life or part of someone's life. Biography, this is a true story about a real person. Is a literary genre that portrays the experiences of all these events occurring in the life of a person, mostly in a chronological order. Autobiography, a biography written by a person about his/her own life and history. So, autobiography is one type of biography which tells a life story of its author, meaning it is written record of the author's life. Essay, a short composition usually written from the author's point of view. Essay can be persuasive, comparative, literary criticism, political manifestos, arguments, observations, recollection, or reflection. How to, an instructional form of writing that demonstrates how to do a task, activity, procedure, etc. So, how to is providing detailed and practical advice. Textbook, a manual of instruction or standard book in any branch of study. So, textbook is a periodical devoted to literature in a broad sense. Literary magazine usually publish short stories, poetry, and essays. Along with literary criticism, book reviews, biographical profiles of authors, interview, and letter. Editorial, an article that is usually a newspaper or magazine or on television or the radio. So, editorial, the article expresses the author's personal opinion and view on a particular topic. Advertisement, a public promotion of a product or service. Advertisement, it is a form of communication used to help sell these products or services. It usually describes how the products or services can be benefit the customer. Brochure, a pamphlet or leaflet advertisement. Brochure may be advertised locations, events, hotel, products, services, etc. They are usually brief in language and have an eye-catching. Memoir, a type of an autobiography. It is a writer's own account of one of two important events and is told in the first person. It is descriptive and highly personal. Atlas, a collection of maps of Earth or parts of Earth. So, Atlas presents geographic features, political boundaries, and geographical, social, religious, and economic statistics. Newspaper, a publication containing news, information, current events, and advertising. So, newspaper, there are feature articles on topics such as political events, crime, business, entertainment, society, and sports. Many newspapers also include some editorial columns. Other sections include advertising, comics, and coupons. Almanac, an annual publication that contains tabular information in a particular field according to the calendar. Research report, an informational objective piece of writing based on multiple accurate references. So research report, it is an informational objective piece of writing based on multiple references. Magazine, a periodical that contains articles, pictures, advertisement, stories, etc. that is published on a regular schedule. Encyclopedia, a comprehensive written work that is used as a reference. So, encyclopedia, it contains articles on various topics and branches of knowledge. That's all. Thank you.